Welcome to the Millennial Rant, a podcast about whatever's bothering me today. With topics ranging from politics to pop culture, there's a rant to cover everyone. For more Millennial Rant content, you can join me on the web at millennialrant.com. I've touched on this before, that I do actually personally fall under the rainbow umbrella, as it were. So I am actually in that crowd. And so I figured, this being June, I would go ahead and talk about that. And by that, I mean the absolute utter crazy insanity that has become the Pride Granfalloon. What is a Granfalloon? A Granfalloon is a false grouping of something with people who have some something or other in common, but which is largely, if not wholly, superficial and in a lot of ways just straight made up. One of the biggest Granfalloons that is most popular all across the country are sports teams, particularly football teams, right? Whether it's college football, whether it's professional football, it doesn't matter. You have your team, and even if you move across the country or out of the country or whatever, you still have your team. That is your team, and you take pride in your team, right? It's the same thing with the whole alphabet soup movement, with this idea of creating a place of belonging where you can be free to talk about whatever or do whatever or be whatever, as long as you fit into that bubble, right? So what this really comes down to is this false idea that by labeling yourself in a certain way, you become part of a bigger group that has, a fuller presence, right? Something to offer the world simply by existing. And that's the lie, okay? Absolutely nothing in the world would change, except maybe economically, if people stopped following sports teams, if they stopped affiliating themselves with a football team or a soccer team or a baseball team or whatever. I mean, yes, the merchandising costs would plummet and people who are on those teams would probably lose their jobs. We saw some of this, I think, happen with the whole take a knee thing, and there was a lot of pushback from fans who refused to watch different sporting events because of the whole take a knee thing. And so I think that some people woke up to this idea of what I'm participating in is not real, but that's a video for another time, maybe. I don't know or care enough about that particular whatever to really get into it. But what I am specifically talking about, like I already said, is the whole Pride movement, right? The LGBTQIA, B, C, D, E, F, G people. And if you don't know what that means, that is, see if I can get this right, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, LGBT, queer, and or questioning. I'm not entirely sure. They change it back and forth all of the time. I mean, all of this is arbitrary anyway. But so queer, there's like two A's, I think. One is asexual, one is ally, and then there's like an I in there for, like, I don't know, independent, idiocy. I don't know what the I stands for. I feel like there should be a U for undecided, but that's probably what the plus is for. Anyway, so that's what that is. And I specifically clarify that because apparently there are a lot of people who don't know what the letters stand for, which is a little bizarre to me, but also we've been using the letters for so long, I guess ultimately that would kind of make sense. So that's why I specifically put that in there. So that being said, I do actually fall in that sphere. Okay, that like I am among those. And I'm not going to tell you where I fall because it's none of your business. But that doesn't change the fact that the actual outward manifestation of the pride movement, what it has become, is convoluted and exclusatory, incendiary, and in a lot of different ways disgusting. And I mean that in that it's been perverted from what it was initially intended to do. So what was the whole pride movement initially intended for? Like a lot of things, it started with good intentions, right? There are genuine reasons why the people within these communities came together, and a lot of it has to do with protection, because there are people who genuinely were ostracized, who were berated, who were beaten, who were abandoned, who were, you know, assaulted, raped, even murdered because of the way that they identified sexually. And so it's a legitimate concern that it was created to address. The problem is, like a lot of these things, it got way, way, way out of hand. And a lot like feminism, once equality was achieved, it stopped being about being equal and it started being about being better. And now we've gotten to the point where if you don't identify, if you don't buy into it, if you don't wear rainbows and butterflies or whatever everywhere you go, then you are the enemy. So like I said, it's very divisive. And even within its own little sphere bubble thing, it's divisive, because you have to pick a letter, or you have to pick multiple letters, but it's just you separate yourselves even more and more, and the more you dive into it, the more separate you become. And it's almost like it's designed to keep people apart, even though the initial purpose of it was to bring people together for safety and community. So that's a major, major problem. Getting back to the Grand Falloon idea is that now they're wrapping themselves in this idea as if it is a real thing, as if it's something that is tangible, as if it is something that is movable, that they can pass it on like a football from the hands of one player into another player. And it doesn't work that way, because it's just an idea. It's not actually real. And within the realm of ideas, it's not even particularly solvent. The more you dive into the ideology, the more it tends to break down. And it's not, I don't know, it's ultimately basically what it was designed to do, it no longer does. It has become a point of contention in our culture, in our societies, in our neighborhoods, in our families. And it's if you don't embrace every part of it, then you are again the enemy. And I don't have to accept that somebody is gay and say, you know what, that's great, I'm so happy for you, you're like you're living your best life, you're gonna just what. I don't have to accept that that's an okay thing. I also don't have to go out of my way to tell them they're going to hell. But it's none of my business. Whoever it is that you want to sleep with, I don't care. Just don't push it on me, okay? Like, don't come up to me in my face and start making out with your two guys or two girls. But don't do that if you're a guy and a girl either. Either way, keep it to yourself. Just why have we gotten to a point in our society where we're so obsessed with making people aware of who it is we want to have shoving their tongues down our throats, or not having tongues shoved down their throats, as the case may be for some of those people? It's become so saturated into everything that you can't pick up a book or watch a movie or listen to music or look at a painting without seeing it there, because it's slowly been introduced over the last 20 years until all of a sudden in the last 5 or so, they just decided that they were going to stop, being subtle about it and just shove it into everything. And it gets in the way of a lot of stuff. Like, it's, you're watching a show and you're enjoying the show and you're going along just fine. And then out of nowhere, somebody's like, by the way, I'm gay. And you're like, okay, is that relevant to the story? No. Are you ever gonna have a love interest? No. Is there like some dark past backstory thing that's gonna, no. I just wanted you to know that I'm gay. And now we can move on and go on to the next thing. But I will be randomly reminding you that I'm gay. Why? Like, really, who cares? What does it matter? And if you're trans or non-binary or you're straight or het or cis or whatever other crazy words are out there to describe people being people, who cares? But we've made it like almost criminal, and I say almost criminal because those laws haven't been passed yet, but almost criminal to look at a person and say that person presents as a man, I'm going to address that person as a man, and then you say, you use he, him pronouns, and that person loses their ever-loving mind because they're either a she, her, or a they, them. As an English person, I just want to say that they, them is not a singular pronoun, okay? It's not used to refer to an individual. English doesn't have a strictly gender neutral pronoun. We don't. If you're using the gender neutral, then it's he, and the reason why it's he is because the whole idea of humankind and personhood is, anyway, I could get into the etymology. I'm not like super well versed on it, but ultimately what it boils down to is that if there is a gender neutral in English, it's he, him. So all of you they, thems out there, if you want to be gender neutral, you're a he, him. Okay? I'm just saying. Anyway, it's not the point. What I don't understand, what I genuinely do not understand, is why this community that fought so hard to fit in is now fighting so hard to stand out in all of the worst ways. Like, take specifically the transgender community, okay? Originally, when somebody was transgender or transsexual, they went through all of the efforts that they could in order to outwardly present as the gender that they identified with. And the entire point was that you couldn't tell. Okay, you couldn't look at a transgender woman and say, that's a man. Or a transgender man and say, that's a woman. Because their entire point was to fit in to the gender that they felt that they were. That they felt that they should be biologically associated with, even though they are not. Now, it doesn't matter how well you present as the opposite gender of whatever it is that you are. Your actual DNA will never change. And I need to address this specifically because I have met people, I know people personally, who genuinely believe that if you get enough hormone therapy, it will transform your DNA so that you become that gender biologically that you want to be. And that does not happen. It can't happen. It's not possible. That the amount of gene splicing that would have to go into this is on like high science fiction, almost fantasy levels, okay, of not realistic. And so, you can take hormones all your life, but the moment you stop, your body is going to start flushing those hormones and replacing them with the hormones that you have naturally. So if you're a man and you want to present as a woman, so you take estrogen, when you stop taking estrogen, your body's going to start building up testosterone. That's just how it works. And it's going to be the same for a woman presenting as a man. Now, there are changes that are going to be irreversible. There are a lot of, we're seeing that a lot now with a lot of these girls and guys who are detransitioning. In particular, these girls who transitioned at a young age and their voices deepened, and now they can't go back. They can't tighten their vocal cords back up to the point where they sound like a woman. So now they look like a woman, they dress like a woman, they're biologically a woman, but a lot of them sound like men. And that's something that they'll never be able to get back. So, that leads to the next part of this. The whole transing kids thing, right? Kids apparently are not cognitive enough to get a tattoo, drive a car, own a gun, vote, drink alcohol, smoke cigarettes, whatever. I mean, there's like a laundry list of things that people are not allowed to do until they hit 18 and or 21. Which is stupid in and of itself. There should be just one age and legal is legal, but that's, again, a video for another day. So why is it then that we're letting 3-year-olds decide that they want to be the opposite gender, and we're just okay with that? Why is it that we're allowing 15-year-old girls to get their breasts chopped off and have, testosterone pumped into their body so that they grow facial hair and their voice deepens? And, why are we allowing that? Why are they cognitively ready for that, but they still can't get a tattoo or drink alcohol? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up. And all of this is wrapped up in the pride ideology. It's granfalloon of don't think about it. Don't think about it. Just accept it. Just accept it. Take it as we're giving it to you. Don't ask questions. Just take it. And I don't play that way. I'm going to ask questions. I'm going to poke holes in your logic. And you're never going to be able to convince me that it's okay to pump a child full of experimental drugs and chop off parts of their anatomy, mutilate them in ways that are completely irreversible. And yet, people are like super against circumcision right now. Like, how dare you mutilate a man's penis in that way? But I mean, a 3-year-old wants to chop it all off, then hey, well, more power to him. He clearly knows what he's about. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, I've seen people get up in arms over piercing the ears of a baby, and they're like, why would you take that choice away from that child? It's like, are you kidding me? So yeah. All this comes back down around to the fact that the pride community, the LGBTQRA alphabet soup, is divisive, it's incendiary, and it's in a lot of ways unsafe. Psychologically, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, it's just not safe. And if you're an adult, you do you. You do you. Whatever it is that you want to do, as long as you're not harming somebody else or breaking the law, I don't care. Seriously. I may not agree with you. I may not, think that you're on the up and up with, deity or whatever, but that's not your problem. What I think of you isn't your problem, it's my problem. I have to figure out my own business, just like you got to figure out your own business. But you know what? Keep your business. I'll keep my business, and we can all get along just fine. But the moment you cross that line and you start messing with me or my kids, that's it. That's when it gets personal. So keep it to yourself, because otherwise, that's when hands start to get thrown. And I don't want to be in that. I don't need that contention in my life. Life is hard enough without adding unnecessary drama into the mix. Okay? I don't need it. I don't want it. I have no interest in it. And again, you do you, I'll do me. What do you care what I think? I am just a person on your computer screen saying what's on my mind. And if you don't like it, don't watch it.